Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the room fall quiet. Above you, the modern world fades, the hum of machines, the pulse of electricity, the whisper of air conditioning. Beneath that silence lies another world. A world 3.5 billion years old. The surface of early Earth glows faintly under a dimmer sun. The continents are only forming. Much of the planet is ocean, dark and heavy with iron. Lightning flickers across the haze. Volcanoes breathe ash and steam into a sky tinted orange by methane. Down in those restless seas, no fish swim, no plants wave. There are only molecules, tiny, simple, restless. Some link together, others break apart. They do this endlessly, driven by energy and chance. And somewhere in that chemical storm, information begins to take shape. Strings of molecules learn to copy themselves. The first whispers of life are not creatures, but codes. Among these early replicators, something peculiar stirs. Most molecules copy themselves directly. They are self-sufficient. But a few begin to take a shortcut. Instead of building all the machinery they need, they use someone else's. They discover that if they can sneak inside another replicator, they can use its tools to make copies of themselves faster. That trick, that act of molecular parasitism, may have been the first step toward what we will someday call a virus. A virus is not alive in the usual sense. It cannot breathe or move or grow. It carries only instructions, a fragment of genetic code wrapped in a delicate shell. Yet that fragment can command living cells to build more of itself. It is as if a thought learned how to use a body. Imagine drifting now weightless through that ancient water. Around you float countless molecular experiments, tiny worlds of possibility. Some succeed for a moment, others vanish. One filament of RNA folds itself cleverly, survives a bit longer, and copies again. Nearby, another strand figures out how to hide inside the first. Evolution begins not with creatures, but with these quiet acts of theft and persistence. Billions of years later, we would name these patterns viruses. But back then, there were no names, only chemistry that wanted to continue. The earliest Earth was full of such invisible dramas. Sunlight struck the ocean surface, powering reactions that built sugars and bases. Lightning forged new compounds in the air. Hydrothermal vents pumped minerals and heat into the deep. Every moment, random combinations formed, broke, and reformed, an endless lottery of molecular ideas. Most dissolved back into nothing, a few endured. From that endurance came complexity. RNA molecules learned to store more information. Some began to fold into shapes that could speed up chemical reactions, primitive enzymes. Others joined into simple membranes, trapping a tiny interior world. And within those membranes, life began to resemble something recognizable: the first cells. But if the first cells were pioneers, the first viruses were their shadows. Wherever life created order, viruses found a way to borrow it. It is possible that as soon as the first true cell formed, another molecule discovered how to invade it. That is the secret of viruses. They are not a separate creation, but a reflection of life's desire to replicate by any means. Take another breath. Feel the slow rhythm of air entering and leaving. The same invisible logic that built the first viruses still hums in every cell of your body. Your DNA, your mitochondria, even your immune system, all carry ancient echoes of those early battles and alliances. Some scientists think viruses helped spread genes between early organisms, speeding evolution. Others suspect pieces of viral code became part of us, shaping how life works today. In the end, the story of viruses is not only about disease or danger. It is about the thin, shimmering boundary between the living and the non-living, a place where information itself becomes a kind of creature. So as you rest, imagine those first sparks in the dark ocean. Imagine molecules finding clever shortcuts, learning to copy, to hide, to persist. Out of that quiet chaos came everything: cells, planimals, us, and the countless invisible travelers we call viruses. The mystery we cannot see has always been here, riding on the edge of life, reminding us that even in silence, something is always learning how to begin again. Take another slow breath. Let your mind drift to the very edge of what we call life. There is a border there, a place that isn't quite chemistry, and isn't yet biology. It's a soft, shifting frontier, invisible but profound. To understand viruses, we must stand there quietly and watch the line blur. What does it mean to be alive? To eat, to grow, to respond, to reproduce. By those measures, a virus seems almost alive, but not quite. It carries a blueprint, yet cannot use it without borrowing the tools of another. It waits in silence, patient as stone, until it finds a living cell. Then, in a single breathless moment, it awakens. The code within it unfurls, seizes control, and commands the cell to make copies of itself. Then it disappears again, leaving behind hundreds of echoes, life and non-life woven together. The first viruses, if we can call them that, were likely born from this borderland. When the first cells appeared, little membranes filled with liquid chemistry, they carried with them endless possibilities. Inside those tiny bubbles, RNA molecules were already copying, mutating, experimenting. Mistakes in copying weren't failures, they were experiments in evolution. And among those experiments, some molecules learned to survive by using others. Picture a small strand of RNA floating near a primitive cell. It slips inside not to help, but to borrow. It finds the cell's enzymes and uses them to copy itself over and over. The cell bursts. The cycle begins again. In that moment, whether we call it selfishness or brilliance, the first virus may have been born. But that word born is misleading. Nothing was really born. It was chemistry learning to imitate life. A molecule finding a clever way to persist. Even today, scientists struggle to place viruses on the tree of life. They have no ribosomes, no metabolism, no energy of their own. They don't fit among bacteria, or archaea or eukaryotes. Some think viruses are remnants of the ancient RNA world, fragments left over from before DNA took over as life's genetic language. Others believe they are descendants of cells that lost everything unnecessary, becoming pure efficiency, only a code and a shell. And still others think viruses came from both worlds at once. Bits of genetic wanderers that learned to move between hosts, carrying life's messages like tiny couriers. At this border, the usual rules dissolve. There is no clean separation between living and non-living, only continuity. Viruses, in this sense, are like punctuation in the sentence of life. They mark pauses, disruptions, transformations. They help life change course. So tonight, as you rest, imagine standing at that border. Around you drift endless forms, some alive, some not, all moving in slow rhythm. The first viruses are not enemies. They are explorers whispering across the threshold, showing that the will to replicate can exist even without breath or thought. The border of life is not a wall. It is a tide that flows both ways. The ocean was warm then, warmer than any ocean today. Sunlight shimmered through the haze, touching the surface where chemistry had become language. Long before DNA, there was RNA. Each strand of it could both store information and perform actions. It could be a blueprint and a builder, a simple molecule with two talents. This world of RNA was full of chance and chaos, but it was also astonishingly creative. In the RNA world, everything depended on copying. Each strand that could replicate faster or survive longer gained an advantage. But replication wasn't perfect. Errors crept in, mutations, and some of those mistakes made the molecules better at surviving. This was evolution in its first, simplest form. Now imagine a molecule that discovered how to replicate, not by itself but by using another's mechanism. It would be smaller, simpler, faster. A master of shortcuts. That's the genius of viruses, not in building but in borrowing. Some scientists think the earliest viruses were these cheaters. In the RNA world, small fragments that hijacked the replication systems of larger RNA molecules. They were molecular pirates, taking without giving, yet accelerating the arms race of innovation. Because of them, life had to get smarter, more stable, more protective. The first immunity, in a sense, was born. In this ancient contest, replication versus invasion, both sides became more complex. Eventually, the winners of that arms race invented DNA, a molecule far more stable than RNA. DNA was a way to lock in information, to keep it safe from corruption. But even as DNA took over, the old viral tricks didn't disappear. They adapted. Every step forward in evolution, viruses followed. You can almost hear it, not as sound, but as rhythm, the endless copying, the rise and fall of sequences, like waves lapping against the shore. Each molecule striving to outlast the others. The ocean hums with invisible motion. Close your eyes again. Picture it, a microscopic world made of possibility. In the warm shallows of the RNA world, the first viruses are born not as creatures but as ideas. self-replicating codes looking for a host. And in some quiet way, we are their descendants too, built from the same drive to endure. If there were viruses, there must have been hosts. Once the first cells appeared, tiny, fragile spheres of fat and molecules, they were perfect targets. Inside, the chemistry of life was dense and active, full of the tools a virus could use. Picture one of these early cells, no larger than a grain of dust, floating in a tepid sea near a volcanic vent. It has no defenses. Its membrane quivers gently in the currents. Inside, strings of RNA copy and twist, building the machinery that will someday become metabolism. Then, a small fragment slips inside. Perhaps it enters through a crack in the membrane. Perhaps it's pulled in by accident. Once inside, that fragment wakes. It finds the enzymes it needs and begins to replicate. The cell fills with copies until it bursts, spilling them into the water. That moment, the first infection, changed the planet forever. From that point on, evolution would never again be simple. Every form of life would live under the shadow of parasitism and adaptation. Life would learn to defend itself, to recognize intruders, to repair damage, to evolve immunity. And viruses in turn would learn to disguise themselves, to hide, to wait. Conflict had entered biology, and it would shape everything that followed. In those early seas, the hosts and parasites danced together. The hosts invented complexity, the viruses invented simplicity. Together they made life dynamic, never still, never finished. Even today, many scientists think viruses are responsible for huge leaps in evolution. They move genes between species. They insert their code into hosts. They force life to innovate. The first hosts may have been destroyed by their viruses, but their descendants, the ones who survived, became stronger. Imagine that. The beginning of all diversity born from struggle so small it couldn't be seen. As you breathe quietly, imagine the viral world spreading. Tiny fragments of code drift from one cell to another, each carrying secrets of replication. Over billions of years, they evolve alongside their hosts, always adapting, always learning. Viruses are more than parasites, they are memory. They remember what life has tried before. They recycle genetic ideas, carry them between species, and sometimes plant them deep within genomes. Even in you right now, ancient viral genes lie dormant, silent witnesses from the beginning of time. Some of them have even become useful. In human DNA, genes once carried by viruses now help form the placenta. Others influence the immune system or control gene expression. What began as infection has become integration. Life absorbs what it cannot defeat. So when we ask where the first virus came from, maybe the answer is this: it came from the same place as life itself, from the restless need of molecules to persist. A virus is a thought, crystallized into code. It is the idea of replication stripped of all else. It is life's own reflection, staring back from the mirror of time. As you drift towards sleep, remember that the story of viruses is not only one of fear or illness, but of creativity. The creativity of chemistry becoming biology, of stillness becoming motion, of chaos becoming pattern. The first virus was not an enemy. It was an experiment, one that worked so well it never ended. Close your eyes again, breathe slowly, and imagine the earth long after its beginning. The oceans have grown calmer. The skies have turned from orange to blue. Continents, still small and broken, drift across the planet like islands in a vast sea. Life now fills the water. Not plants or animals yet, but tiny, single-celled beings. They divide, consume, and change the chemistry of the world. And drifting between them, smaller still, are the quiet architects of evolution, the viruses, invisible to the naked eye, silent even under the most patient gaze. They move like ghosts through the water. Each carries a thread of information, a code that, once inside a host, becomes alive with purpose. The host copies it, obeying instructions it never wrote. The cell becomes a tool, and when it bursts, countless new viral forms drift away, searching for the next victim or the next collaborator, because not all infections end in destruction. Some end in transformation. Scientists studying early life have found that ancient viral genes are woven into the DNA of nearly every organism alive today. It's as if life has been writing a shared autobiography, with viruses as the editors. Over billions of years, viruses have inserted fragments of themselves into their hosts. Sometimes, the host's descendants keep those fragments. Sometimes they use them, In that way, viruses became part of us long before we ever existed. The earliest single-celled organisms, bacteria and archaea, lived in endless competition. When viruses infected them, they left behind broken copies of their own genes. Some of those genes turned out to be useful. A few became part of the host's defense system, others helped with replication or gene transfer. What began as invasion turned into inheritance. Close your eyes and picture this slow exchange, a molecular conversation across time. A virus enters a cell, leaves a trace of itself, and dies. The cell survives and passes the viral sequence to its offspring. Millions of years later, that tiny piece of code becomes part of a new function, perhaps the ability to adapt to heat, or to repair damage, or to resist another virus. Evolution isn't a ladder, it's a mosaic, and viruses are among its most patient artists. There's something almost poetic in that. A parasite becoming a partner, a threat becoming a teacher. When we look at the genomes of modern organisms, we find layers upon layers of ancient viral influence. In humans, roughly 8% of our DNA appears to come from viral ancestors. They are silent now, molecular fossils, but at one time, they were active invaders. Even the placenta, that delicate bridge between mother and child, exists because of viral genes that help cells fuse together. Without that ancient infection, mammals might never have been born. Think about that for a moment. Without viruses, the story of life might have stopped at the ocean's edge. In the distant past, when the first multicellular organisms were forming, viruses may have been part of the reason cells learned to cooperate. Infections forced organisms to share defenses, to communicate, to build barriers. And those barriers, the beginnings of tissues and immune systems, became the architecture of complexity. Every adaptation, every new form of life, was shaped by the need to survive the smallest of intruders. Breathe slowly. The rhythm of life is repetition and change. Copy, mutate, adapt, repeat. That rhythm belongs to viruses as much as it does to cells. In fact, the boundary between them is blurrier than ever. Some viruses carry genes that once belonged to cells. Some cells carry entire viral genomes passed down like heirlooms. There is no clean separation. There never was. If you could watch the history of Earth sped up, millions of years flickering by each second, you'd see viruses moving like sparks through the ocean, igniting bursts of evolution wherever they land. A new defense appears here, a new vulnerability there, the endless dialogue between predator and host. This is the true legacy of the first viruses, not destruction, but diversity. Even now, in the modern world, that same ancient process continues. Each time a virus jumps from one species to another, it carries more than a threat. It carries potential. It forces life to reimagine itself, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully. The constant tension between creation and collapse is the heartbeat of evolution. So as you rest, imagine that rhythm pulsing quietly in the background of time. The first viruses are still with us, not as creatures of fear, but as patterns woven into the code of existence itself. Every breath, every heartbeat, every cell in your body carries traces of their ancient conversation. In the end, viruses did not just shape life. They are part of what life is, a memory of beginnings, a reminder that even the simplest spark can rewrite the world. The ocean is calm now. A gentle shimmer of light ripples across its surface, and beneath it the unseen war continues. It is not a war of noise or fury. There are no weapons you could see, no soldiers, no smoke, only molecules silently evolving. Yet it is the oldest, most constant struggle on Earth, the war between viruses and life. Every cell, from the simplest microbe to the most complex creature, lives under the same condition. To survive, it must defend itself. To endure, it must recognize and resist the invader. That tension, stretching back billions of years, has shaped everything we know. The first battlefields were microscopic. Imagine a drop of water from an ancient sea, filled with early bacteria and their invisible enemies. A single viral particle drifts near, carried by the currents. When it meets a host, it latches on, injecting its code like a whisper of command. The cell obeys without question, becoming a factory for copies of the invader. Then it bursts, releasing a cloud of new viruses that drift away to find others. But the cell's kind is not helpless. Some of its descendants survive. Those survivors carry tiny genetic defenses, memories of the virus written into their own code. The next time an invader arrives, the cell recognizes it and destroys it before it can take hold. This is how immunity began, not as consciousness, but as memory made of molecules. Close your eyes. Picture that silent duel unfolding across zones: infection and defense, attack and repair, over and over again. The rhythm of evolution itself. Viruses learn to disguise themselves, changing their coats, hiding their signals. Cells learn to recognize patterns, to slice up foreign code, to protect what was theirs. Every victory for one side inspired a new invention from the other. This back and forth, this endless dialogue, gave rise to the astonishing creativity of life. Without it, cells might never have developed complex immune systems or the ability to adapt to new threats. In ancient microbes, this arms race became encoded in their DNA. The CRISPR system, the same tool that modern scientists now use to edit genes, was first an ancient bacterial defense mechanism against viruses. Each time a cell survived an attack, it kept a piece of the invader's code as a record, a biological scar. The next time the same virus appeared, the cell recognized it instantly. Life, it turns out, has always kept receipts. As evolution continued, this molecular war scaled upward. When multicellular life emerged, the same struggle played out on new levels. Entire tissues became defensive systems. Organisms learned to detect and neutralize invaders before they could spread. The immune system, intricate, adaptable, astonishingly precise, was built from the pressure of billions of years of viral attacks. Even our emotions, our fevers, our instincts to rest and recover, they are echoes of this ancient conversation. The feeling of illness is not just the presence of a virus, it is your body remembering how to fight. But the war was never one-sided. For every defense life invented, viruses found a countermeasure. They learned to hide within the host's own genes, to remain dormant for years, or to turn the immune system against itself. Some even learned to use the host's defenses to spread more efficiently. In that sense, viruses became mirrors, showing life its own weaknesses, forcing adaptation again and again. They are evolution sparring partners, shaping us in their reflection. Now breathe slowly. Imagine watching this eternal exchange not in seconds, but in geological time. 1 billion years pass in the blink of an eye. Continents drift, oceans rise and fall, ice sheets grow and melt, and beneath it all, in every drop of water, the same invisible battle continues. The players change. Bacteria give way to eukaryotes, simple organisms become complex, but the war never stops. This is not a story of winners and losers. It is a story of coexistence. Life and viruses are bound together, each defining the other. Without the invader, the host would never evolve. Without the host, the invader would not exist. The war that never ends is not one of destruction, but of creation. Out of conflict comes diversity, and from diversity comes resilience. As you lie still, let this thought settle. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, is part of this same rhythm. Inside you, the descendants of those first cells carry immune defenses older than mountains. And somewhere in your DNA, silent fragments of ancient viruses sleep, reminders of past encounters, folded into the story of your body. They are not enemies anymore. They are history written into flesh. And even now, as viruses continue to circle the globe, changing, adapting, evolving, the pattern remains. Attack, defense, adaptation, renewal. It is life's oldest heartbeat. The war that never ends is not fought in anger. It is the conversation that keeps the world alive. Take a deep breath. Picture the air filling your lungs. Now imagine a time when breathing was impossible. 3 billion years ago, Earth's sky was not blue. It was a dull, hazy orange, thick with methane and volcanic gases. The oceans were dark, iron-rich, and lifeless to anything that needed oxygen. Yet under those dim waters, tiny architects were working on the planet's greatest transformation. They were the cyanobacteria, microscopic builders that learned to use sunlight. And where there is sunlight, there is change. For millions of years, these small, greenish cells floated through the sea, capturing light and turning it into energy. In doing so, they released something utterly new: oxygen. At first, it was just a trace, bubbles rising invisibly, quickly absorbed by iron in the water. The oceans rusted from within, coating the seafloor with red minerals. But the cyanobacteria kept working, breath after breath, day after day. Slowly, Inexorably, oxygen began to leak into the air. That slow exhalation would alter everything, including the hidden world of viruses. Close your eyes. See the world before the change: volcanic skies, black water, continents bare and silent. Then, as oxygen accumulates, the atmosphere begins to clear. The haze thins, and for the first time, the sky becomes blue. The sun shines brighter. The planet itself begins to breathe. This moment, the great oxidation event, was both a triumph and a catastrophe. Oxygen was deadly to the life that had thrived without it. Entire populations of anaerobic microbes perished, but others adapted. Some found new ways to use this strange, reactive gas to make energy far more efficiently than before. And everywhere, viruses followed. Wherever a cell adapted, a virus adapted too. When photosynthetic bacteria spread across the oceans, new viruses arose to infect them. They carried genes from one microbe to another, moving bits of genetic information across the seas like whispers of innovation. Some of those genes controlled how cells handled sunlight, or how they built pigments, or how they survived in oxygen. The result was an invisible network. Viruses as couriers of evolution, accelerating the diversification of life. Imagine drifting through that ancient ocean. Sunlight filters down in soft gold. Tiny cells shimmer around you, releasing bubbles of oxygen. And in that glowing water, particles of viral code drift too, so small they could pass through any filter, yet powerful enough to rewrite the world. Each infection, each replication, is a test. Some destroy their hosts, but others leave gifts, fragments of DNA that make the next generation stronger. Over time, viruses become the messengers of adaptation, carrying the language of survival from one lineage to the next. Without them, evolution would move slowly, bound by chance and isolation. With them, ideas spread like wind. The color of the planet changes. Oceans turn blue-green, skies clear to azure. The air itself begins to sparkle with oxygen, and the world takes its first clean breath. But beneath that serenity, the viral dialogue continues, faster than ever. The arrival of oxygen also creates a new kind of stress oxidation, the slow burn of chemistry. Molecules that were once stable now corrode in the presence of air. Cells must invent defenses, antioxidants, membranes, repair enzymes, and who helps deliver those genetic solutions? Viruses do. By ferrying genes across species, they spread the recipes for resilience. A single viral infection might carry an enzyme that neutralizes oxygen radicals from one microbe to another, giving the recipient an advantage. In this way, viruses become both threat and benefactor, destroyers that carry the seeds of survival. Even today, the descendants of those ancient cyanophages, viruses that infect photosynthetic bacteria, still drift through modern oceans. They control how much carbon the seas absorb, how much oxygen we breathe. Each day, they kill and recycle vast portions of the microbial population, keeping the ecosystem balanced. The same dynamic that began billions of years ago still shapes the planet's chemistry. Breathe again. Feel the quiet rhythm of your chest rising and falling. Every breath is part of this inheritance. The oxygen that sustains you was born in that ancient transformation, shaped by the interplay of cells and the viruses that shadowed them. When you exhale, you return carbon to the air, the other side of the same endless exchange. The great oxidation event was not just a geological moment, it was a biological awakening. Life learned to use fire safely. The planet learned to keep balance between creation and decay. And through it all, viruses were there, silent conductors of the unseen symphony. So, as the world turned blue, the viruses remained invisible, yet essential. They taught life to adapt to the poison that became breath, to harness the chaos that became energy. They were, and still are, the quiet pulse beneath every transformation. Let the image fade now, the rust-red seafloor, the rising bubbles, the blue sky forming overhead. The air around you tonight carries the same oxygen, the same legacy, the same calm persistence. What began as a trick of sunlight and chemistry became the breath that keeps you alive. And somewhere, in every breath, the first viruses still whisper their story. Let your eyes close for a moment. Listen to the quiet hum around you. That same quiet once filled the oceans billions of years ago, though even then, it wasn't truly silent. It was full of movement too small to see, an invisible web of connection that held everything together. We tend to picture early life as isolated, little cells drifting alone in an endless sea. But the truth is more intricate. From the very beginning, every living thing was part of a network. Molecules traded places. Genes moved from one lineage to another. Nothing evolved in solitude. And at the center of that ancient network were the viruses. Picture the surface of a warm Archean ocean, shimmering under pale sunlight. Each droplet of water contains billions of microscopic lives, bacteria, archaea, and the ever-present viruses. Every second, countless infections occur. Cells are invaded, filled, and burst apart. Yet in that destruction, new beginnings are written. Each time a virus replicates, it sometimes carries a little more than its own code. A piece of the host's genome slips into its capsule. The next time the virus infects, that fragment is passed on, a gene transferred from one organism to another. This process, called horizontal gene transfer, may be one of the most powerful engines of evolution on Earth. Through it, life doesn't just inherit traits from parents. It borrows them from neighbors, sometimes even from strangers. Viruses are the couriers of those borrowings. Over time, this viral trade route weaves the fabric of ecosystems. Genes for metabolism, photosynthesis, stress tolerance, all of them travel through this network, reshaping species again and again. When one microbe discovers a better way to survive, viruses help the secret spread. Take a slow breath. Imagine that the entire planet is breathing with you. The oceans inhale, new life blooming in sunlight. The oceans exhale, viruses breaking down old cells, releasing nutrients for others. That cycle keeps everything in balance. It always has. Modern scientists call it the viral shunt. In every liter of seawater, viruses destroy vast numbers of microbial cells each day, releasing carbon and nitrogen back into circulation. That same pattern likely existed from the beginning. In the deep past, the viral web didn't just connect life, it kept it alive. By recycling the building blocks of cells, viruses prevented the early oceans from running out of resources. Death became renewal. Even now, if you could hold a single drop of seawater under an impossibly powerful microscope, you would see galaxies of interaction, billions of viruses moving among millions of bacteria, each playing its quiet role. The pattern has not changed in 3 billion years. Only the shapes and the names have. The viral web was also a teacher. When life began to organize into colonies, into symbiotic partnerships, viruses helped exchange the genes that made cooperation possible. They carried the molecular instructions for communication, chemical signals, surface receptors, metabolic loops. A cell that could once live only alone might, through viral exchange, learn to live together with others. In this way, even multicellularity might owe its origin to the ancient messengers of infection. It is humbling to think that the very mechanisms that make complex organisms possible were born from a relationship between predator and prey. Or perhaps something subtler, a conversation between guest and host. Imagine the scene again, an ancient shoreline at dusk, tides whispering, microbial mats glowing faintly with trapped sunlight. Within them, a dense community of life forms, trades genes through viral intermediaries, creating new forms of cooperation, new metabolisms, new possibilities. It is the web within the web, unseen but omnipresent, delicate yet unbreakable. Breathe in slowly. Let the thought settle. Every connection, every dependency in modern ecosystems, from coral reefs to forests to the human gut, traces its ancestry to that first viral web. Even in our own bodies, the same principle endures. Trillions of viruses, known as the virome, inhabit us peacefully. They interact with bacteria in our intestines, helping maintain balance. They keep microbial populations in check, recycle nutrients, and even influence the immune system's development. We are not separate from this network. We are nodes within it. The story that began in the Archean seas continues every second inside us. Now picture the Earth from far above, a sphere of blue and white turning slowly through sunlight. Beneath its clouds, every drop of water, every leaf, every breath participates in that ancient cycle of sharing, infection, and renewal. From a distance the planet seems still, but at the smallest scales it pulses with exchange. That pulse is the heartbeat of the viral web. Life is not a solitary phenomenon. It is collaboration written in the language of survival. And viruses, far from being outsiders, are the threads that keep the fabric from unraveling. As you rest, remember this: you are part of that same continuity. The atoms in your body have been through other organisms, perhaps through viruses themselves, countless times. You are built from borrowed pieces, held together by ancient patterns of exchange. The viral web is not just history. It is you. It is everything that breathes, floats, grows, or dreams. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the air move in, then out, steady and quiet. Now imagine an ancient sea falling still. The surface is glassy, but beneath it, life is unraveling. Extinction didn't begin with dinosaurs or meteorites. It began here, long before animals, before shells, before bones. It began with cells so small you could fit billions of them on a fingertip, and with the invisible companions that hunted them, the viruses. In the earliest ages, ecosystems were simple but fragile. A single mutation could change everything. Sometimes a virus learned a new way to infect, and entire populations of microbes vanished almost overnight. To a human eye, it would have been imperceptible. No great crash, no silence of forests, only a chemical flicker in the ocean's code. But in the language of evolution, it was thunder. When one species collapsed, another took its place. Each wave of viral infection cleared space for something new. It was destruction as renewal, chaos as a kind of gardening. The first extinctions taught the planet how to recover. Picture a stretch of shallow water along a volcanic coast. The tide is warm, tinted copper by dissolved minerals. Microbial mats coat the rocks like living carpets, green, gold, and crimson. Each patch is a city of cells, busily exchanging nutrients and signals. Then, without warning, a new virus appears. It slips from one colony to the next, carried by drifting currents. Inside each cell it finds, the code unfolds, hijacks, replicates. Soon the mats begin to pale, the colors fade, the water darkens with debris. To the cells it is catastrophe. To the planet, it is a rehearsal. The first act in an endless cycle of loss and renewal. Viruses are sometimes called nature's editors. They erase what no longer fits and leave room for the next draft. The early Earth was full of such editing events. Sometimes a virus would wipe out a dominant lineage of bacteria, allowing rarer types to flourish. Other times, viral genes would linger in survivors, giving rise to new abilities: photosynthesis in one branch, nitrogen fixation in another. Each extinction carried the seed of invention. Even mass death had its rhythm. When sunlight changed, when oxygen rose, when continents shifted, viruses adapted faster than their hosts. A single leap in viral evolution could reset an ecosystem, pushing life toward new possibilities. These were the planet's first resets, and they happened again and again. If you could watch Earth's timeline like waves on a shore, you would see pulses, blooms of life followed by sudden crashes, then renewal. Those pulses are the heartbeat of evolution itself. Breathing again, and then out. The same rhythm, the same pattern. Extinction feels like an ending, but for life it is a form of breathing. Exhale, inhale, loss. Creation. When one lineage disappears, another expands into the space left behind. The virus, in its blind hunger, unknowingly clears the path for complexity. Perhaps it has always been this way. Creation hidden inside destruction. Even in human history, epidemics reshape civilizations, forcing adaptation, invention, empathy. The scale changes, but the pattern endures. Back in the deep past, after each microbial collapse, survivors rebuilt the world. They learned to share genes, to form tougher membranes, to hide in stone and sediment when the water grew hostile. Viruses learned too, to lie dormant, to wait for better conditions, to weave themselves into the genomes of their hosts. Some became permanent residents, guardians rather than predators. From these uneasy truces, complexity blossomed again. The Earth never truly died, it only changed its mind about what life should be. Imagine now the ocean returning to calm. Sunlight falls through clear water, touching new generations of cells. They are slightly different, tougher, more adaptable, carrying bits of code from their fallen ancestors and from the viruses that once destroyed them. The memory of extinction lives within their DNA. Every extinction, no matter how small, writes its story into what comes next. That is how evolution remembers. The first viruses didn't intend to shape the future. They had no intention at all. Yet through their endless cycles of infection and renewal, they taught life resilience. How to bend without breaking, how to begin again after loss. Let that thought settle with your breathing. In the rhythm of your heart, in the slow expansion of your lungs, the same pattern repeats: tension and release, destruction and renewal, silence and motion. It is the rhythm of life, learned long ago beneath ancient seas. When you next see the blue of the ocean or the curve of a cloud, remember that everything alive today carries the memory of those first extinctions, the invisible wars that sculpted the world. What once seemed like endings were simply pauses in a longer song, a melody that still plays quietly in every living thing. The viruses never stopped, and neither did life. Take another slow breath. The water is clearer now, the light that filters through it is softer, steadier. The chaos of early extinctions has settled into a new rhythm. Life is learning to weave itself together. Until now, the planet's inhabitants were single cells, each one living alone, dividing, drifting, dying. But the constant threat of infection is teaching them something new. A cell that lives in isolation is easy prey. A cell that can cooperate, that can share warning signals or wrap itself in a protective film beside its neighbors, has a better chance to survive. The very presence of viruses becomes a teacher. They push life toward community. Picture the seafloor 3 billion years ago. Thin layers of microbes form mats like living tapestries. When a virus attacks one cell, the surrounding cells react. They thicken their membranes, release chemicals, or sacrifice themselves to protect the group. In that small act of coordination, something remarkable happens. Individuality blurs, and cooperation takes its place. Over time, these cooperative colonies become more sophisticated. Cells begin to specialize. Some focus on capturing light, others on protection or repair. Communication grows richer. Signals pass through touch, through chemistry, through shared genes. Out of this communication emerges a new concept, the organism. The step from single cell to multicellular life is one of the greatest transformations in Earth's history, and viruses may have been one of its catalysts. How? Because viruses move information. Each infection mixes genetic material between hosts. Some of those borrowed sequences code for adhesion molecules, allowing cells to stick together more effectively. Others influence cell division, slowing it down, stabilizing the group. Over millions of years, these scattered innovations accumulate. The same viral strategies that once caused cells to lose control of growth are repurposed by life itself. The genes that let a virus force a cell to reproduce become, in time, the genes that let a multicellular embryo grow. Even today, when a human embryo forms, some of the molecular switches that turn growth on and off come from ancient viral DNA. They are the echoes of that first alliance. Infection turned into instruction. Imagine that ocean again, glowing faintly with blue-green light. Colonies ripple and fold like blankets of silk. Beneath the surface, the web of life grows denser, cells linked by chemistry, viruses moving through them, carrying messages, shaping boundaries. The planet begins to hum with structure. Complexity is not sudden. It's a patient accumulation of relationships. The more life interacts, the more it learns to organize. And the more it organizes, the more room there is for innovation. The first multicellular forms are fragile. Many fail, dissolve, or are eaten. But a few endure. They learn to form spores, to cling to rock, to float together at the surface. The cooperation that began as a defense against infection becomes the foundation for everything to come. Tissues, organs, creatures. Breathe in. Consider what that means. Every animal, every plant. Every human body is built on a template forged by ancient struggle, by the constant negotiation between life and the things that tried to unmake it. Your own cells still remember how to recognize viral shapes, how to call for help, how to rebuild after damage. That memory is billions of years old. Even creativity, the way DNA recombines to make new forms, owes something to viruses. They showed life how to rearrange information, how to take a fragment from one place and use it in another. Evolution learned to be inventive by imitating the invaders it could never fully escape. Now the seas shimmer with variety. Threads of algae stretch upward toward light. Filaments join into colonies. Primitive fungi creep across damp stone, everywhere. Viruses continue to move among them, still destructive, still generous. They prune, redistribute, recycle. They keep the balance between growth and decay. If you could slow time to a whisper, you would see each act of infection as part of a choreography, a tiny push that nudges life toward greater complexity. The planet is learning how to sustain abundance. When you breathe out, think of how that abundance reaches you. The oxygen in your breath, the proteins in your cells, the very structure of your body are all outcomes of this ancient dance. The rise of complexity was not a sudden miracle. It was a long negotiation between survival and surrender. Viruses forced life to cooperate, and cooperation became creativity. The ocean drifts in twilight now, above the waves. The first storms of true weather sweep the sky. Beneath them, the foundations of future worlds are being laid, silently, beautifully, endlessly patient. Let the image fade. Feel your heartbeat slowing to the rhythm of that deep time. Every pulse is an echo of that moment when the first simple cells learned that they were stronger together. Every living thing is the proof that from conflict can come harmony, from fear can come community, and from the smallest fragments of code can rise the vast complexity of life. Close your eyes. Imagine millions of years flowing past like waves, one folding over another in endless rhythm. The earth has changed again. The air is richer now, the sea's alive with complexity. Algae drift like tiny emerald suns. Simple animals move through the shallows. Plants are preparing their first steps onto land. And always, beneath, within, and around, move the viruses. They have been here from the beginning. Invisible threads woven into every chapter of life's story. As life became more complex, so did the viruses. They learned new strategies, new disguises, new ways to endure. In the single-celled age, they were pirates. Now, with multicellular hosts, they became sculptors. A virus no longer needed to destroy its host completely. It could settle inside, hidden and quiet, copying itself along with its host's DNA. Generation after generation, it could wait, a silent passenger, shaping the genome from within. This state of dormancy is called latency. It is one of nature's most elegant solutions: survival through stillness. The virus does nothing, yet ensures its immortality. And in that stillness, it sometimes changes the host in return. Imagine an ancient ocean creature, small, transparent, its body pulsing with gentle light. A virus enters its cells, inserting its code. For a while, nothing happens. But over time, that code begins to influence the creature's genes, changing how it glows, how it senses light, how it reproduces. Eventually, the creature's descendants carry the viral DNA as part of their own identity. What began as infection becomes inheritance. This is not a rare event. It is the norm. Modern geneticists have found that many key evolutionary leaps, from placental development in mammals to immune regulation in vertebrates, bear viral fingerprints. Some of the very genes that allow cells to fuse, that let neurons communicate, or that control when a cell should die, appear to have viral origins. Viruses, in their persistence, became collaborators in evolution. Take a slow breath in. Hold it for a moment, then let it go. Life's progress is not a straight line but a spiral, repeating, reworking, reinventing. Viruses trace that spiral like shadows following every curve. Sometimes their influence comes through crisis. A new viral outbreak may wipe out a fragile species, opening space for another to thrive. At other times, the influence is subtle, a small mutation here, a borrowed gene there, barely noticeable in the flow of time, but decisive in the long run. Without viruses, the genetic diversity of life would be thinner, quieter, slower. They are the sparks that force adaptation, reminders that no genome is ever truly finished. Imagine Earth from far above. You see continents slowly drifting apart, the blue of oceans deepening, the green of life spreading across coasts. But if you could look closer, much, much closer, you would see a second planet nested inside the first, an invisible one made of genes, constantly rearranging itself. In that world, viruses are the architects, shuffling the building blocks of biology like cards. Each organism's genome is a palimpsest, layers of writing, old code overwritten by new. Viral traces beneath every word. In a human genome, for instance, about half of the sequences are derived from transposable elements and ancient viral insertions. Half of what you are, genetically, comes from things that once infected your ancestors. You are, in the most literal sense, part virus. Think of what that means. When you touch the world, when you breathe or dream, you carry the memory of ancient infections that shaped not only your lineage but all of life. The first viruses did not vanish. They became whispers in your cells, stories your DNA still tells. This realization changes the way we think of evolution itself. It is not a battle between good and bad, host and parasite. It is a partnership, sometimes uneasy, sometimes transformative, between the living and the almost living, between life and its shadow. Breathe slowly. The line between self and other blurs. Inside you, viral remnants help control which genes switch on and off. They may even influence mood and development, linking you in unseen ways to everything that came before. The same dynamic repeats across species: plants, animals, fungi, all shaped by viral exchange. It is as if evolution discovered that to become creative, it needed an editor, that to become stable, it needed a spark of instability. Every leap forward in complexity carries the imprint of this relationship. Without it, there might be no nervous systems, no flight, no thought. Now imagine twilight falling across the primeval land. The first mosses breathe out oxygen. Tiny worms move through damp soil. The air hums faintly with potential. And above, invisible in the dusk, viruses drift. Countless, weightless, eternal. They have no eyes, no mind, no purpose. Yet through them purpose emerges. They connect every form of life into one vast experiment, one conversation stretching across billions of years. You can think of them as the planet's memory, storing, rewriting, reminding life of its own possibilities. Their shadow lies across every species, but it is not a dark shadow. It is the outline of continuity. When you breathe now, feel that quiet legacy move through you. The viral shadow of evolution that began before there was even a word for life. Close your eyes again. Imagine the great tree of life as scientists first pictured it. A single trunk rising from the deep past, splitting into branches: bacteria, archaea, animals, plants, fungi. It's an image of order, a way to map the diversity of living things. But the longer we've studied that tree, the less certain its shape becomes. When researchers began to sequence genes and compare their histories, they found something unexpected. Threads crossed from one branch to another. Genes leapt between species that should have been far apart. At the center of that tangled weave were viruses. Picture the tree now from above, its branches glowing with streams of light. Between those glowing limbs flow countless filaments, viral highways connecting leaf to leaf, root to tip. The tree is no longer static. It pulses, alive with exchange. Every branch has been touched. Viruses have borrowed, stolen, or gifted genetic material to nearly every lineage. Sometimes they act as couriers, sometimes as catalysts. Their invisible work has shaped the very architecture of evolution. Scientists now speak less often of a single tree and more of a web, a network whose nodes are species and whose connections are viral. Life is not a hierarchy. It is a conversation. Take a slow breath. Inhale, exhale. Feel the air that links you to every other breathing thing. That air once carried the first aerosols of living matter, microscopic travelers drifting from sea to sky. Even now, trillions of viruses move through every gust of wind, every cloud, every raindrop. They bind the biosphere together, exchanging code between ocean and land, between plant and animal, between past and future. If you could see them, the atmosphere itself would shimmer with their motion, a mist of information encircling the planet. In the quiet of a laboratory, scientists trace that motion by comparing sequences of viral DNA and RNA. They find patterns older than continents. Some viral families span all domains of life, infecting bacteria, archaea, and eukaryotes alike. Others are so ancient they may predate the last universal common ancestor, the point where all known cellular life converges. This discovery unsettles the tidy story of life's origins. Maybe viruses didn't come after cells at all. Maybe they were there from the beginning, co-evolving with the first replicators, shaping the rules that cells would later follow. A tree needs soil, a forest needs air. Perhaps the tree of life grows from viral ground. Breathe again slowly. You are part of that network too. Half the genes that make you human carry echoes of ancient viral travelers. Each cell in your body holds dormant sequences that once belonged to them, still capable of awakening under certain conditions, still part of the symphony of your genome. The boundaries blur. Life is not separate from its infections, it is built from them. When scientists map these relationships, they see that the deepest roots of biology are tangled with the viral world. Viruses link species that never met. They bridge eras separated by billions of years. They are the invisible mycelium of evolution, running through everything that lives. Now, picture the tree once more. Its leaves shimmer with blue light, Its branches twist and recombine like strands of DNA, and beneath it, flowing like wind through grass, are the viruses, countless, ancient, ceaseless. They prune the branches when they grow too dense. They scatter seeds of new genes into the soil. They are the gardeners and the ground at once. To call them alive or dead misses the point. They are process, they are continuity, the pause between beats that gives rhythm to the music of life. As you rest, let that image settle behind your eyelids. A single living planet, wrapped in an unseen web of code and memory. Every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of motion is a note in that composition. The tree of life is not solitary. It is accompanied always. The quiet force that ensures the song never ends. Take a slow breath. Imagine drifting once more through deep ocean water. Darker now, colder. The world is older, continents broader, skies clearer. Life has flourished in endless forms, yet the smallest of them continue to surprise. For billions of years, viruses were thought to be simple, tiny fragments of code wrapped in protein, incapable of anything but replication. But as life grew more complex, so too did its shadows. Somewhere in the quiet depths, a new kind of virus began to appear, larger, heavier, carrying hundreds, sometimes thousands of genes. They were not mere scraps of information anymore. They were giants. These colossal entities, discovered only in recent decades by human eyes, have changed the way scientists see the viral world. One such being, the mimivirus, is as large as a small bacterium. Under a microscope, it looks like a geometric planet, covered in delicate fibers. It doesn't fit the old definition of a virus, it's too complex. It carries genes for building proteins, for repairing DNA, even for aspects of metabolism, tasks once thought exclusive to cells. If you could shrink yourself to microscopic size and drift beside it, you would see a universe of structure. The viral shell glimmers like a cathedral built from symmetry. Inside, spirals of DNA rest, containing nearly 1,000 instructions. When this virus infects a host, it sets up not just replication, but a miniature factory. A temporary city inside the cell. It is a world within a world. Breathe slowly. Let the idea settle. Even simplicity seeks expansion. The discovery of giant viruses blurred the line between life and non-life even further. They are too intricate to be mere parasites, yet too dependent to be fully alive. They seem to remember an older form, something that may have existed before cells or alongside them. Some scientists believe these giants are descendants of ancient cellular organisms that gradually shed unnecessary parts, keeping only what they needed to survive through infection. Others suspect the opposite, that they are descendants of early viruses that grew complex, absorbing genes from their hosts across eons. Whichever is true, they carry whispers of the earliest times. Imagine a hidden ecosystem within a droplet of seawater. Tiny amoeba glide slowly, feeding on bacteria, and among them drift the giant viruses, waiting. When one meets its host, it does not simply kill, it transforms. It builds vast viral factories inside, organelles made of shimmering proteins, producing new particles in waves. Then, like a tide receding, the host dissolves, leaving thousands of newborn giants behind. This process repeats across the planet billions of times a day. In every ocean, in every puddle, in every drop of rain, these giants sculpt microbial populations, recycling nutrients, maintaining balance. Each infection is part of the Earth's metabolism, a quiet heartbeat that keeps the biosphere in motion. The discovery of these giants was humbling. For centuries, humans believed they understood the scale of life, that viruses were the smallest, the simplest, the boundary between living and dead. But then, like a whisper from the deep, the giants reminded us that even the smallest worlds contain oceans of mystery. Their genomes are archives of forgotten genes. Some sequences resemble nothing else on Earth. Others connect to ancient lineages long extinct. It's as if each giant virus is a museum, preserving fragments of evolution that might otherwise have vanished. Take another slow breath in. Hold it. Let it go. The story of the giants shows that evolution never stops experimenting. Even the most efficient systems sometimes circle back toward complexity. The same forces that made the first virus, chance, need, adaptation, also made these vast and elegant forms. They are not mistakes, they are reminders that in life, simplicity and complexity are not opposites, but partners in a long, spiraling dance. Picture again the early ocean. From above it looks peaceful, but within the giants are stirring. They move through invisible currents like drifting moons, vast yet weightless, ancient yet new. They infect, they build, they vanish, all in silence. And though they cannot think, their presence shapes the thinking world. They challenge the way we define life, the way we measure existence. If something so intricate, so purposeful, can still be called non-living, then perhaps the boundary itself is an illusion. As you drift towards sleep, hold that image in your mind. A vast ocean filled with invisible worlds, giants rising and falling, each one carrying the memory of creation. They are the deep breath between eras, the bridge between chemistry and consciousness. Life, it seems, never stopped being creative. It just found new ways to imagine itself. Breathe in slowly, let the air fill your lungs, then breathe out just as gently. That simple act, the quiet rhythm that keeps you alive, connects you to the oldest companions on Earth. Every breath you take carries countless invisible travelers, specks of dust, droplets of water vapor, fragments of pollen and viruses. They drift everywhere, in the wind, in the mist above the ocean, in the soft exhalations of trees. There are viruses high in the stratosphere, frozen in clouds, and buried deep beneath the soil. They outnumber all living cells on the planet by orders of magnitude, 10 million times more abundant than stars in the observable universe. You inhale them, exhale them, and most of the time you never notice. They are part of the air itself, the oldest and smallest form of migration, a continuous exchange between earth and sky. Imagine the atmosphere not as empty space, but as a slow-moving sea. Currents of air sweep across mountains and oceans, carrying viral particles like plankton. In the sunlight, some decay, others survive, falling with rain or snow, seeding the next ecosystem below. Every day, trillions of viruses descend from the sky to the surface of the earth. They land on leaves, rivers, the fur of animals, the skin of humans. It is a quiet rain of information. When scientists place collection plates on high mountains, they find them covered with viral DNA within hours. When snow is sampled in Antarctica, it contains viruses that originated thousands of kilometers away. They ride the planet's breath as easily as you ride your own. Breathe in again. You are part of that exchange. The air entering your body carries the memory of oceans, deserts, forests, and storms. Some of the viruses you inhale tonight may have begun their journey above coral reefs or in clouds over distant continents. They will settle briefly in your lungs, caught by your immune system, studied by your cells, and eventually exhaled again. In this way, life communicates continuously, not in words or sounds, but in molecules. It's easy to think of viruses only as danger, but most do not harm us. Most are neutral, even beneficial, shaping the microbial communities that protect us. Within your body, trillions of viruses coexist peacefully with bacteria, fungi, and cells, maintaining balance, keeping harmful species in check, influencing digestion and immunity. Your body is not a fortress, but an ecosystem, a small, complex planet of its own. And like Earth, it breathes with the rhythm of the viral world. Some of these internal viruses, called bacteriophages, specialize in infecting bacteria. They are guardians of equilibrium, preventing bacterial overgrowth. Others are remnants of infections long past, harmless echoes of ancient encounters. Together, they form your virome, the viral counterpart to your microbiome. Each person's virome is unique, shaped by where they live, what they eat, and who they share space with. Every handshake, every shared breath, every gust of air is an exchange of ancient code, rewriting and refining the invisible web that links all living things. Imagine zooming out now, out of your room, your city, the entire planet, viewed from afar. Earth is a blue sphere wrapped in a shimmering film of atmosphere. Within that thin veil move quadrillions upon quadrillions of viral particles, swirling in patterns like dust illuminated by sunlight. They drift upward from oceans, ride air currents over mountains, and settle again in rain. The planet is alive with invisible motion. If you could listen carefully enough, the sound of wind might reveal itself as a chorus, a whisper of countless molecules passing information across the sky. In this way, the viral world connects everything. The microbes of the deep sea to the bacteria in clouds, the forests of one continent to those of another, you to the world beyond. Even climate is shaped by them. Viruses influence how carbon moves through the oceans, how clouds form, how ecosystems recycle nutrients. Every breath you take participates in those planetary processes. When you exhale, your carbon becomes part of a leaf, your water becomes part of a cloud, and the air that leaves your body may one day enter another creature far away. In that air, perhaps, a few viral particles will continue their ancient journey, tiny messengers from a time before time. Take one last deep breath. In, hold it. Out. The viruses that drift through that breath are not intruders. They are part of the same long story that began billions of years ago in ancient seas. They have always been here, shaping, pruning, balancing, and connecting life. Each breath you take is a continuation of that story, a reminder that even the smallest things carry the weight of eternity, that the boundary between you and the world is as thin as a sigh, and that the quiet presence of viruses in every breath is not a threat, but a thread that ties you to the origins of life itself. Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and picture the inside of a single cell, a world smaller than dust, yet more intricate than any city. Within it lies a molecule wound like a galaxy DNA. Every twist of that spiral holds instructions, memories, and echoes of things long gone. If you could read those sequences like a story, you'd find not just the tale of one organism, but of countless others that came before it. Hidden in the margins are fragments of ancient viruses, relics of old invasions that never fully left. Over billions of years, viral DNA has slipped quietly into the genomes of almost every species. Sometimes it arrived violently, as an infection that inserted itself into a host's code. Sometimes it was passed from parent to offspring, generation after generation, until it became part of the family line. Those viral traces are called endogenous retroviruses, ghosts in the genetic machine. In humans, they make up nearly 8% of our DNA. Most are silent, broken by time. A few still speak, influencing the way cells grow, how genes are expressed, how our immune systems develop. They are the fossil record of infection, written not in stone but in code. Imagine drifting through that molecular landscape. You pass long stretches of genetic desert, repetitive sequences, quiet and still. Then, suddenly, you find an island of viral architecture, a sequence once used to invade a cell, now repurposed to protect one. The same key that once unlocked destruction has been turned inside out and used for creation. Life, it seems, never wastes a good idea. Over the ages, these viral memories became tools. Some viral genes help embryos implant safely in the womb. Others regulate nerve development or fine-tune the immune response. They're like borrowed words in the language of life, adopted, adapted, spoken until they become native. Take another breath, hold it for a moment, exhale slowly. That rhythm, in-out, renewal, release, mirrors the way genes themselves evolve. Old sequences fade, new ones take shape, borrowed fragments find new meaning. The genome is not a static library, it is a living memory, rewritten in every generation. When scientists compare DNA across species, they can trace this rewriting. Viral fragments act like timestamps, showing when certain infections occurred. In that way, viruses have left a map of time inside us, a molecular record stretching back to the dawn of biology. Your own cells, right now, carry signatures of battles fought hundreds of millions of years before mammals existed. Pieces of ancient viral armor rest beside the genes that make your skin, your blood, your eyes. The history of infection is also the history of survival. In the quiet of the lab, geneticists sometimes resurrect these sequences, reactivating bits of viral code to study their functions. Under the microscope, dormant genes flicker back to life, producing shells, enzymes, or faint signals of replication. For a moment, the past breathes again. It's as if the earth itself remembers through us what it learned long ago, that even invasions can become inheritances, and that danger and creativity often share the same source. Now imagine this memory on a planetary scale. Every organism, from blade of grass to whale to human, carries pieces of viral code. Each one is a page in the collective journal of life, recording every adaptation, every encounter, every moment of transformation. Together, these sequences form the planet's hidden autobiography, a story told not in words, but in whispers of chemistry. Even extinction cannot erase it. When a species disappears, some of its viral fragments remain in others, passed along through shared ancestry. Life, in this way, never forgets. Breathe again and think of your own body. Every heartbeat, every cell division, every renewal of tissue is guided by code written partly by viruses. You are the sum of countless encounters, an orchestra of borrowed instructions harmonizing into something new. Perhaps memory itself, the ability to recall and record experience, is not so different. It too is a way of carrying the past forward, transforming it into something living. The viral memory in our DNA is the biological equivalent of consciousness, the body remembering how to survive. As you rest, imagine the spiral of DNA stretching out like a galaxy of stars. Each point of light is a gene, each cluster a story. Among them, the viral constellations gleam faintly, ancient, persistent, beautiful. They remind us that nothing is ever truly lost. The first viruses may have begun as fragments of self, replicating molecules, but their echoes now sing within every living thing. The memory of their presence has become indistinguishable from life itself. When you wake, you'll breathe, move, and think, all guided by that ancient code, refined through ages of trial and renewal. And somewhere deep in your cells, the viral memory will stir again, quiet but eternal, whispering the oldest truth of all, that what tries to undo us can also make us whole. Breathe slowly. Let the present fade a little, the hum of modern machines, the quiet pulse of electricity. Now imagine another time, the distant past, when humankind was still learning to walk beneath the stars. Firelight flickers in the darkness. A group of early humans huddles together, their faces painted with ash and earth. They whisper stories, perhaps about spirits, perhaps about the invisible forces that bring sickness and health. Even then, though they didn't know the word for it, they were already living with viruses. For as long as there have been people, viruses have moved among us, silent, unseen travelers shaping our history. Long before cities, they passed from parent to child, from village to village. They guided the rise and fall of empires, changed the course of wars, altered the flow of evolution itself. Some came suddenly, fierce and unstoppable. Others lingered quietly, shaping our genes without our knowing. When smallpox first swept across ancient civilizations, it scarred the world in more ways than one. It took lives, but it also left survivors with immunity, a strange, invisible shield that future generations inherited. Even then, viruses were both destroyers and teachers. The immune system we rely on today was shaped by those early trials. Every epidemic, every encounter, was a lesson written in blood and memory. Over thousands of years, the human body learned to remember, to recognize invaders, to fight smarter, to keep a record of victories. That record lives in you now. Every antibody, every immune cell, carries stories older than your name. Imagine how those ancient experiences became part of culture. The first healers, the first rituals of cleansing and protection. They were humanity's attempts to make sense of viral encounters. A fever was seen as a battle between spirit and sickness. A recovery was a kind of rebirth. And in a way, that isn't wrong. Each infection is a transformation. You are never quite the same afterward. The body remembers, the genome adapts, the story grows longer. As centuries passed, humans began to see patterns. They learned to quarantine, to purify water, to seek remedies in plants. But it wasn't until the invention of the microscope that the truth revealed itself. There were worlds smaller than dust, smaller than light, and among them, the viruses. At first, they seemed like pure evil, agents of chaos that appeared from nowhere. But science has a way of transforming fear into understanding. Each discovery, from the tobacco mosaic virus to bacteriophages to the giants hidden in seawater, revealed more of the same paradox. Viruses were destructive, yes, but also essential. Without them, evolution would stall. Without them, ecosystems would crumble. Without them, life as we know it would lose its balance. Take a breath. Think about how far we've come. Today, medicine can see viruses at the level of atoms. We can map their structures, trace their ancestry, even harness them for healing. Gene therapy uses modified viruses to deliver medicine directly into cells, turning once deadly invaders into carriers of hope. Vaccines, one of humanity's greatest achievements, teach our bodies the language of recognition before the danger arrives. It is a conversation that began billions of years ago and continues now in laboratories, hospitals, and hearts around the world. Even as we defend against them, we work with them. Viruses are our oldest enemies and our oldest collaborators. In a deeper sense, the relationship is personal. Every human being carries remnants of ancient infections in their genome. When your ancestors survived a plague, the resistance they built became part of you. Some of your genes are the result of viral encounters long forgotten, buried deep in prehistory. If you could listen closely to your DNA, you might hear a chorus. The voices of those who came before, whispering their survival stories through the language of molecules. In that way, viruses have connected every generation of humanity into one unbroken chain. Breathe again. The air you inhale carries the same particles your ancestors breathed. The viruses you meet are distant relatives of those that shaped the first humans and the first life before them. We fear them, and yet we are shaped by them. We fight them, and yet we owe them much of what we are. They remind us that control is an illusion, that life's beauty lies in its fragility, its constant state of negotiation. When we fall ill and recover, we are reenacting an ancient ritual, one that began before words, before thought, before species. It is the dance of adaptation, the quiet acknowledgement between life and its reflection. Tonight, as you rest, let that perspective ease your breath. The same invisible forces that once frightened and challenged us are the same that keep the world alive. Viruses, in their strange simplicity, remind us that existence is not about perfection, but persistence, about finding balance between chaos and order, fear and understanding. The human story is not separate from the viral one. It is another branch of the same living tree, reaching toward the future while rooted in the deep, unseen past. And as you drift toward sleep, know this: you are part of that story still, a living chapter in the long conversation between life and the smallest sparks that gave it shape. Close your eyes again. The hum of the present fades. Imagine Earth from above, oceans swirling with light, forests breathing in and out, clouds drifting like slow-moving continents of air. Everywhere, from the highest mountain snow to the deepest ocean trench, viruses are at work. They are not villains in this picture. They are the quiet custodians of balance. Each day, countless viral encounters happen in every part of the biosphere. In a single liter of seawater, there may be more viruses than there are humans on the entire planet. They infect microscopic plankton, tiny drifters that form the base of the food chain. When the plankton die, their carbon sinks into the deep ocean, locked away for centuries. That simple process regulates the planet's climate, pulling greenhouse gases out of the air and storing them safely below. It is strange to think that the rhythm of Earth's temperature, the breath of its climate, depends in part on the quiet efficiency of viral infection. But that is the pattern. Viruses destroy, and in doing so, they renew. They keep populations in check, recycle nutrients, and prevent stagnation. Without them, ecosystems would choke on their own abundance. Breathe slowly. Imagine drifting beneath the ocean surface, surrounded by sunlight scattered into green and gold. Microscopic life forms pulse around you: plankton, bacteria, tiny algae. Invisible among them are the viruses, particles of glass and geometry, each carrying a message written in molecular code. When one of these viruses finds a host, it begins the quietest kind of storm. The host's body fills with copies until it bursts, releasing nutrients that feed countless others. It is death that becomes food, destruction that nourishes. This rhythm sustains the ocean, and through the ocean the world. Above the waves, forests perform the same miracle in different ways. Soil viruses regulate the bacteria and fungi that nourish trees. They shape how roots absorb minerals, how leaves grow, how carbon flows back into the air. They are the unseen gardeners of every ecosystem, pruning what grows too fast, feeding what needs renewal. Even in the Arctic tundra, where the ground sleeps beneath frost, viruses wait. When the thaw comes, they awaken, joining microbes and transforming the frozen earth back into fertile ground. Everywhere life exists, viruses keep its pulse steady. Take another deep breath. Think of the planet as one vast organism. Its forests are the lungs. Its rivers and oceans are the bloodstream. Its atmosphere is the skin. And the viruses, they are its immune system, the regulators, the correctors, the unseen balancing act. Sometimes, balance means loss. A disease sweeps through a population, changing the structure of a forest, the pattern of migration, the relationship between predator and prey. But as cruel as it seems, each adjustment prevents collapse. Ecosystems learn to breathe through these disruptions. What appears as chaos is often restoration. When scientists began studying viruses in environmental cycles, they were astonished by the scale of their influence. Viruses control more than a third of the bacteria in the oceans every single day. They shape weather patterns by influencing how aerosols form in clouds. They even affect the albedo, the brightness of the planet, by determining how many microscopic algae live at the surface of the sea. The world we see, the color of the sky, the health of the forests, the temperature of the air, is partly a reflection of viral behavior we cannot see. Imagine now that the camera of your mind pulls back, rising slowly through the atmosphere. Below, the planet turns in silence, wrapped in a thin blue veil of air. You can't see the viruses, but they are there, drifting on the wind, resting in dew, carried in raindrops. They are the pulse within the pulse, maintaining equilibrium through perpetual motion. It is humbling to realize that the same invisible particles that can bring illness in one moment can also preserve the world in another. They remind us that balance is rarely gentle, that harmony often requires tension. Breathe again, in, out. Feel that equilibrium inside you, the constant work of your own immune system, the endless exchange between your body and the world. You are an ecosystem too, governed by the same laws of balance and renewal. The viruses outside you and those within you share the same purpose, though they have none by intention to keep life moving, to make sure nothing stands still for too long. Let your mind drift over the curve of the earth one last time. The oceans shimmer like mirrors. Forests sigh beneath clouds, ice glows faintly at the poles. The planet is not quiet, but its harmony is deep. Every heartbeat, every rustle of leaves, every breath, all are part of a balance maintained by the smallest of things. When you wake and step outside, the air that touches your skin will carry them. Unseen, uncountable, eternal. They are the keepers of equilibrium, the guardians of renewal. The balance of nature is not held by strength or by stillness, but by constant change. And viruses, invisible and tireless, are the hands that keep the scales steady. Take a slow breath. The world around you hums with quiet energy. Circuits, air, heartbeat, wind. Even here, in this moment of stillness, you are surrounded by motion too small to see. The viral world never sleeps. We have learned much about it, yet what we know is a single ripple in an endless ocean. As humanity steps deeper into the age of science, we are beginning to glimpse what comes next, a future shaped by understanding the invisible. Picture a laboratory filled with gentle light. Glass vials line the benches. Machines whisper softly as they read the language of genes. Here researchers study the smallest codes, bits of RNA and DNA that once terrified our ancestors. But now, instead of fear, there is curiosity, respect, even awe. Viruses are no longer just symbols of disease. They have become tools, teachers, collaborators. We have learned to harness their ability to deliver instructions into cells. Some are being redesigned to carry healing messages, to replace damaged genes, to fight cancers, to repair the body from within. In this quiet way, the ancient parasite becomes a physician. The destroyer becomes a builder. Take a deep breath in, hold it, now let it go. The same laws that allow a virus to invade a cell also allow medicine to reach places once thought unreachable. In some hospitals, therapies based on viral shells are already saving lives, restoring sight, correcting inherited disorders, teaching the immune system to recognize tumors. It is the natural logic of evolution, reimagined by consciousness. What once was chance has become intention. But the partnership goes deeper still. In the oceans, scientists have begun to explore how viral activity might stabilize the climate by influencing carbon storage and nutrient cycles. In agriculture, modified viruses may one day protect crops not by killing pests, but by teaching plants how to defend themselves more gracefully. The future of the invisible is not a war, it is a dialogue. We are learning to listen. Yet even as our understanding grows, humility remains essential. For every virus we study, there are billions we have never seen. The virosphere, the total viral world, is so vast that it contains more genetic diversity than all known life combined. It is a reservoir of possibilities, most harmless, many neutral, a few dangerous, all magnificent in their complexity. Our relationship with viruses has always been a mirror of our relationship with the unknown. When we feared them, we saw only threat. When we studied them, we found design. When we listened closely, we discovered reflection. Ourselves, written in smaller script. Imagine the centuries ahead. Humanity may journey to other planets, carrying with it the invisible passengers that have always traveled beside us. Some will adapt to new worlds, others will sleep in the dust. Perhaps one day, life will spread beyond Earth, seeded not just by human hands, but by the microscopic companions that define what life means. Even on Mars or the icy moons of Jupiter, we may find their cousins, fragments of code waiting for a host, waiting for another chance to begin. The viral principle, replication, persistence, transformation, may be universal. It may be the language through which the cosmos experiments with life. Breathe softly now, in, out. Think of how far the story has come, from the first self-copying molecule in a warm, ancient sea to the labs and minds of modern people studying the same mystery with reverence. The circle has closed, though it never truly ends. Every discovery brings new questions. Every cure opens new possibilities. The more we learn, the more we see that viruses are not apart from life, but a reflection of its restlessness, its need to explore every possible form. Perhaps the greatest gift of understanding the invisible is perspective. To know that the universe is alive in ways we cannot see is to be reminded of how small we are, and how miraculous existence truly is. In every infection, in every healing, in every adaptation, the same pattern unfolds: loss, learning, renewal. It is the rhythm of life itself. The future of the invisible will not belong to fear. It will belong to curiosity, to compassion, to balance. We will continue to live with viruses, not in defiance, but in conversation. Together we will write the next chapter of the same ancient book. As you rest, imagine a world glowing gently with connection, air alive with tiny travelers, oceans shimmering with unseen motion, cells whispering to one another in molecular language. You are part of it. Always have been, always will be. The invisible has shaped you, protected you, challenged you, and carried you. And as long as life endures, it will continue to do so. Close your eyes. Breathe. The future is already here, drifting, waiting, whispering softly through the air. Close your eyes. Let the edges of the day soften until there is only breath, warmth, and quiet. You have traveled far, through oceans of time, through molecules and memory, through fear and wonder. Now we return to where it all began. Imagine the young earth again. The air is thick and warm. Lightning flickers across endless seas. There are no voices, no footsteps, no thought, only chemistry humming softly to itself. And somewhere in that hum, a molecule copies, then another. Then one learns how to borrow, to hide, to persist. A virus, though no one is yet alive to name it. That moment, that first act of imitation, set everything in motion. From then on, life and virus, creation and reflection, would grow together, shaping one another across eternity. Breathe in slowly. You are breathing the same air that once passed through those early oceans, the same elements recycled through billions of years of transformation. Every atom in you has belonged to countless forms: rock, water, flame, breath. And through it all, the viral code, the idea of replication, has endured, a constant thread running through every incarnation of life. It has been a teacher of resilience, a sculptor of diversity, a reminder that even what seems destructive can be creative. The smallest things make the largest differences. The invisible moves the visible. Now imagine the circle closing. The first virus, a whisper in the dark ocean. The first cell, a spark of self. Together they began a dialogue that has never stopped. That dialogue became ecosystems, evolution, thought, and finally you. A being capable of looking back at the pattern and recognizing it. You are both the question and the answer. You are the continuation of that first exchange. When a virus enters a cell, it rewrites a piece of code. When you learn something new, when you change, grow, heal, or forgive, you do the same. Life has always been about transformation, about taking what arrives and making it your own. Take another deep breath. Feel it move through you like a tide. In that rhythm lives the entire history of existence. Contraction and release, tension and calm, death and renewal. If the story of the universe were a single breath, viruses would be the inhale, the drawing in of possibility. Life would be the exhale, the expression of that possibility into form. And in between, in the still moment where the breath pauses, you find yourself. That pause is awareness. It is life remembering itself. Think now of all you've seen along this journey, the first replicating molecules, the dawn of oxygen and blue skies, the rise of complexity of cooperation, of thought, all of it carried forward by the same invisible logic, the need to continue, to transform, to share. Viruses were never just agents of destruction. They were the punctuation marks in the sentence of creation, the rest between the notes of a cosmic melody. Without them, the music would have no rhythm. Without them, life might never have learned to adapt, to evolve, to feel. Now let the images fade, the ancient seas, the glimmering microbes, the drifting giants in the deep. What remains is the awareness that you are part of it all. You are made of the same matter that once formed those first viral shells. The same chemical curiosity that learned to copy now allows you to dream. The same evolutionary pressure that once shaped cells now shapes thoughts and empathy. The circle continues. Breathe again, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The air moves effortlessly, guided by muscles and memories you don't have to think about. Inside your lungs, countless microscopic interactions echo the same patterns that began billions of years ago. Exchange, reaction, renewal. Life continues. There is no separation between the origin and the present, between the smallest molecule and the largest consciousness. The entire universe is a conversation about becoming, and viruses were its first words. When you look up at the night sky, at the endless sweep of stars, remember that each point of light may hold its own experiments, its own forms of persistence. The pattern repeats everywhere. Replication, transformation, awareness. It may be that across the cosmos. Other worlds have their own viruses. The first seeds of life whispering, continue. And perhaps, somewhere far away, another being like you will one day wonder where their first virus came from. As you rest now, let your breath slow. Let the story dissolve into stillness. You do not need to hold it. It is already holding you. You are part of the circle that began before time, the endless cycle of creation and renewal. The viruses are not separate from you. They are part of the same long breath, the same conversation, the same living universe that hums quietly in every heartbeat. Close your eyes, drift. The circle is complete and it continues.